Thank you very much. Sure, it's good to beat the slave again. With the name of God, who is the most gracious and the most merciful, in the presence of our ancestors, understanding as African people that we stand on their shoulders, we invite them to join us at this time and to be with us as we celebrate and continue along the path which they have already forged on our behalf. To the sisters and brothers and sisters, to Brother Alton Maddox, the United African Movement, to those of you who've come from the far reaches of the boroughs of here in Manhattan and thereabout, it is indeed a tremendous honor and pleasure for me to greet you again. To some of you, salam alaikum. Others of you, hotep. Others of you, habaragani. Good evening to some. And yo, what up to the rest of you? It's an understatement when I say that I'm really excited to be back here. It's not easy to do the coordinations and the callings and the meetings, and you don't know what goes into getting a program like this together. There were lots of phone calls and faxes and letters and missed times and missed people, and it's just a lot that goes into it. And it's just it's such an honor to be able to come and just sit down and enjoy it when you don't have to go into the details of making it happen. So you need to certainly give the UAM a tremendous applause and support for making this kind of thing happen. Thank you. In fact, I was beginning to wonder if they would ever invite me back again. I've been gone so long, I had to find out when I'm coming back again. Y'all didn't like me the last time or what, you know? But anyway, it's an honor to be back with you. Want to talk tonight very briefly about ultimate liberation. Ultimate liberation, freeing of the African mind. One of the things that we need to be clear about is that we have been trying desperately to get free ever since we've been here. There has never been a period in our experience in North America that we haven't been trying to somehow gain liberation, to get freedom, to get away from the oppressive restriction on our humanity that this culture has enforced. What has happened over the years is that there have been stages of freedom. You see, when you deprive people of their fundamental humanity, they tend to even lose sight of what true freedom is. When you begin to systematically rob people of their basic contact with reality, then they no longer are very clear about what is real. Under those circumstances, they then know something is wrong, but they aren't exactly sure what it is that is wrong. And because of the uncertainty about what's wrong, people then begin to engage in whatever frantic and frustrated effort they can to break free. So they look at the immediate restraint as a means of defining what freedom is. Now, for most of the time that we've been here, the definition of our like of freedom was fairly tangible. It was very concrete. We had chains on our wrists. We had manacles on our ankles. We had hoops around our necks. We had dogs restricting our movement. There were guns standing at the fence. There were very tangible, concrete limitations on our access to movement that made it very clear that something is wrong. The opportunity and the effort to engage in those things that other human beings engage in, the opportunity to be with our children, to be with our wives, to engage in the kinds of things that we had known characteristically and other people were able to do, we weren't able to do those things. So freedom came to mean getting away from the chains, getting away from the manacles, getting away from the limitation, breaking loose from the plantation, outrunning the dogs, outrunning the hunters, outrunning the bounties, outrunning those people who wanted to keep us in that condition, to get away from the whip, get away from the oppressor who was clear and evident by his physical existence. So for most of those 200 years, we did all we could to get free, but freedom meant getting away from the physical conditions of slavery. During those days, the Negroes were far and few between because everybody knew they were in hell. Now, there were people frightened about doing anything about it, but they knew they were in trouble. No one had to convince them that their situation was a contemptible, degraded, pitiful, sad situation. Except for a few of them, of course, who'd gotten to hang out in the house and they thought they were what they were working at. But basically, most of the slaves knew full well that something is going on. Now, under those conditions, the pressure was to get away from the conditions of the plantation, and that was the definition of freedom. If we can just get up north, if we can just get away from the dogs, if we can just get away from the whip, if we can just get away from this mean cracker, then we will be free. So the concept of liberation was migration. Let me migrate from the plantation in Virginia and Carolina and Georgia and Mississippi and Kentucky, and let me get to the free land up north, or to Canada up north. Just get out of this physical situation. So the concept of freedom was a very simple one, that to move from the physical restraints to a place where you had relative ability to move about. After the period of slavery, the concept of freedom became slightly different. It became one of, now that the chains are off, now that the fences are removed, now that the dogs are no longer put on us, now that you no longer have a right to deprive me of the ability to move, then it became clear that even though those things were gone, freedom still was not there. So it became a little less tangible. Even though you couldn't vote, and even though you couldn't walk on the same side of the street, and even though you had to drink out of a special fountain, and even though your children had to go to special schools and you had to live in special areas, the idea, though, is that somehow it was still less tangible. It was less clear. It was more abstract. But people knew something still was wrong, so they said, freedom means let me participate. So they said, boss, now that the chains are gone, let me do some of what you do. Let me go where you go, eat where you go to the bathroom where you go to the bathroom. Let me live where you live, and let my children go where yours go. And our concept of freedom then became one of participation. And so for almost a half of a century, we worked hard to participate. We wanted to simply do what boss did. And if we were doing what boss was doing, we thought we were free. And we made lots of efforts to try to do what boss did. We prayed, we marched, we sat in, we walked in, we voted, we unvoted, we got beaten down in the streets. We did everything just trying to let boss let us participate. Because the concept of freedom then was just to be able to do what boss was doing. Then the laws got shifted again, and they began to let us do that. We could vote, and we could drink out the same fountain, eat at the same place, sleep in the same place. We really thought that now the freedom was here. Then we kept finding out something still ain't right. It still ain't right. So I tell you what, boss, let us be like you. We want to marry you and listen, we want to go to your school. We don't want no these colored schools. We want to go to your school, boss. We don't want to have no black community. We want to live integrated. No longer no participation. We want to integrate. We want to live right next to you. We want to pray next to you. We want to sing next to you. We want to do everything right with you. Don't give us none of this old black stuff, none of this old Africa stuff. I'm an American, boss. I'm a real American. And once we began to push for that, we didn't want nothing to keep us from being a good American. We wanted to fight where boss fought. We wanted to go to his wars, live in his place. So the thrust then had gone from plantation to participation to membership. We wanted to be shared members, and we thought we'd be free. But then we found out that we got there and we were sitting there and somehow we still didn't feel free. Sitting in his school, still didn't feel free. Reading his book, still didn't feel free. On his television, still didn't feel free. In his plays, still didn't feel free. Everything we did still didn't give us the sense of being free because we knew that something was still missing. Now, as we come to the end of this 20th century, we are in a period of real complexity because all tangible evidence suggests we ought to be free. Ain't no chains, no plantations, no laws prohibiting you from voting for who they want you to vote for. No barriers to going to whatever school you want to try to go to. Any book you want to read, you can read it. Turn on TV, colored people everywhere, doing all the things that white folks do. Being molested, learning how to molest, having dysfunctional families, being psychoneurotic. We got them all. Listen, listen, listen. We got them all. Negroes on the Supreme Court, married to white women. So what you want? What's the complaint? What's the dissatisfaction now? We have Negro editorialists and journalists who get in the newspaper and write penetrating editorials to argue against the continued victimization, preoccupation with being victimized because the content of the character is what really counts rather than the substantive realization that we are really free. Listen. We have right-wing conservative Republicans who tell the Negroes they ought to shut up and stop complaining. They got everything they need. They're just addicted to complaints. Complain, complain, complain. I'm free, you free, what you want to be. It's all there because now it's not as tangible anymore. But the majority of folks still know something is wrong. Every time you look at a statistic that reflects negative things, we at the top. Dying from cancer, we at the top. Dying from AIDS, we at the top. Highest poverty, we at the top. Most welfare, we at the top. Everything that has to do with death, destruction, degradation, destruction of our lives and our children's lives, we at the top. And even though we have representatives who look like us, sitting in every high peak of authority, the bottom line is that we are still primarily plantation existing Negroes. That is the bottom line reality. So the question becomes, well, it answers one question. It lets us understand why it is so difficult now to get most of our people to understand there's a problem. Because an illusion has been created. An illusion has been created that we now are just like everybody else. So the Irish say, "You're no different from me." The Italians say, "You're no different from me." Even the Jews say, "You're no different from me." We all in the same boat. We all are just struggling to make it now. And most of our people have come to believe that that's the way it is. Not most of them, many of our people. Many of our people, they believe that that's the way it is. So when you come to them and say, "Look, we got to get free. Time's running out. Our condition is getting worse." They say, "What are you talking about? Oprah is one of the richest people in America. What are you talking about? We got Montel, Les Brown, all of Burtis, all Barry, all of them now on TV. We on the edge of night, Search for Tomorrow, All My Children." What do you mean, Medical Center? We got special episodes with us. We've had the Cosby Show. We got everything. What do you mean? We've got PhDs, LLDs, DMs, MDs. You name the D, we got all the Ds. What you mean? What are you concerned about? What are you talking about? So it becomes extremely difficult to get them to understand that those are illusions. Illusions that have been created to keep us pacified, quiet, and stupid about our condition. Now, 400 years of systematic conditioning has created a mental condition that no longer makes plantations necessary, no longer makes chains necessary, no longer makes dogs necessary, no longer makes segregation necessary, no longer requires any of those external circumstances, because the conditioning and the illusion has created such a situation so that you now operate in your own enslaving interest. We are now in 1993 our primary source of enslavement. Let me say that again. Now, I know this comes difficult for some because we like to, even those of us who are fairly aware of what's happening, we like to say the white folks holding us back. I got news for you. White folks are almost powerless. They have created such a mess in this world, they can't hold themselves back anymore. Listen, their children are crazy, their families are dysfunctional, they are polluted, they are toxic, they are addicted, they're insane, and they're broke. The only thing that's keeping them working is the illusion. There's an illusion that there is still wealth in this country, even though there are trillions of dollars in debt. There's an illusion that they still have power to control only because the ones who are being controlled accept their control. There's an illusion that they still have genius and creativity only because we continue to give them authority over us in areas of genius and authority. They continue to believe they have the power of leadership only because we attribute and give them the power of leadership. I have news for you. Their power is done with. And the only reason we're in the condition we are in is because it's up here. It's up here. The enslavement in our minds has us perpetuating a condition that has been over now for decades. Now, several things have got to be dealt with because there are several forces that hold the chains on our mind. One of the chains, one of the forces, and one of the most powerful forces is fear. Fear. Terror has been bred into our very genes. Centuries of watching each other beat and destroyed and mutilated. Whenever we expressed any manhood, any womanhood, any peoplehood, any selfhood, watching that century after century breeds terror into our very genes. We fear standing up for what we believe to be true. We fear being identified with positive things for ourselves. We fear saying to our enemies, you are an enemy. You always have been, you always will be, and I don't trust you to be another damn thing. That's the problem. We fear. Listen. If you engage in a process of lynching people publicly, century after century, decade after decade, by the thousands, people begin to transmit even to their offspring. You better be careful. You better watch out. You'll get killed. Watch what you say. Watch where you say it. Be careful. If we begin to restrain natural creative assertiveness because of the internalized fear that it's danger to stand up if you're a black man or a black woman. If you identify with those things that mean your own well-being, it's fearful to do that. Now, it gets translated into more narrow ways. People get afraid, well, I might lose my job. You know, I've had this job. I got these children to feed. You understand? I would be there with you. I would stand by you, but, you know, I work for these people. What's going to happen if they fire me? So we become frightened. Or, you know, I'm trying to get a degree, you know. As soon as I get out of school, I'm going to be right there with you. I'm trying to do my, you know, but, you know, I can't do much now because, you know, I'm still here under these people got to determine what's going to happen to me. But it is a fear that's an old fear, and we are finding concrete, tangible, local reasons when, in fact, it's deeply inbred in our very makeup. We are frightened to stand up as a community. When we see brothers and sisters getting out front, we start backing up. When Alton Maddox calls you to say, let's stand up and tell these people what our position is. And he suffers consequences. 500 say in the back corner, I'm with you, brother, I'm with you. But once he catches hell, 5 show up, 10 show up, a few show up. Lynn Jeffries stands up and everybody says, I'm with you, Dr. Jeffries, brother professor. I'm with you. Professor, you right. You told it like it was. I believe in you, brother. You got that scholarship down. I read that same history, brother. The Iceman Inheritance. I know that thing, brother. I'm with you. He says, well, come on and back me up. Well, I'm coming, bro. I'm going to be there later. That's fear. It's fear to stand up. When we see and hear these things happening, then you know that our people are driven by fear. Now, this is an old problem. It's an old problem that continues to incapacitate us, debilitate us in a way that causes us difficulties in doing what we need to do. We are fearful to take control of our own communities. We are fearful to stand up and defend our own communities. We've fought wars for white folks. We killed all other kinds of white folks. We've killed Asians. We've killed Native Americans. We've killed Africans. We're doing it right now. And they're getting ready to send us to kill some more. You know, about 5 or 10 years ago, I said, the day will come very soon when our people will be sent into, I had the place wrong, into South Africa. And they will send cadres of black soldiers who will be shooting black people and not even realizing they're engaged in a contradiction. Right. I didn't know it was going to be Somali. I didn't know it was going to be Haiti. I didn't know that they would send our people to shoot our people somewhere else in the continent, but I knew it was coming because the conditioning was being prepared. And the fearfulness, and they don't know why. Them brothers don't know why they shooting people over there. They don't know why they're getting ready to go into Haiti and shoot them. Yes, there are problems, but they have no way in the world of knowing what the real problems are. They don't even know if they're shooting the right people. Somebody probably ought to get shot, but I doubt if it's the ones who they're shooting. Now, the problem with this is that we can't break away because we are too fearful. We can't speak up because we are too fearful. And we cannot call a spade because we are too fearful. We have got to come to grips with the fear. And you see, one of the problems is we don't know we're afraid. It is just like the gangs. The gangs are some of the biggest cowards in our communities by themselves. They can't walk by themselves. They can't do anything by themselves. If they are not with the group, if they are not with their homies, if they aren't supported by an army around them, they are weak, spineless, whatever. Yeah, punks, whatever. They can't stand up by themselves. And the reason that they've given their lives to this addicted violence is because that's the way they try to master the inner fear. They need the support of this group of wild men in order to give them a sense of courage because they are so fearful. Fear drives us in such destructive ways. Black men go around beating up black women. Why? They're fearful. They're scared. They won't go beat a black man. If they want somebody to go beat, there are a lot of crack dealers right around the corner. Go beat one of them big dudes upside the head. You so bad? Go grab him in his collar, say, "Come here, boy. Get that stuff out of our neighborhood." Go grab him. But no, you go grab a little puny sister, beat her all upside her head, throw her in the gutter, stomp her, and walk around thinking, "I'm a man now." The weakest thing you can find to beat on, "I'm a man." And some of you would even take young children, little children. "I'll show you," beat the child half to death. "Yeah, I'll show you who the man is around here." You haven't proven anything, but it is the fear that's driving you. It's the fear that's so deep and so intense that leaves us in that circumstance. I mean, it goes way back. During the civil rights days, the sisters often would be put in the front. The sisters, they put the sisters in the front of the marches. You go watch some of those Eyes on the Prize films, you always see sisters be washed down the street. Be washed down the street. Like not a one of our sisters should have been in those situations. We should have been out there, but it was a fear, a deep fear that was there then and that is here right now. Now, I know this is difficult, but if we don't confront it, we'll never get rid of it. Because that is the power that's controlling us from the inside. That's why we can't take a stand out and say, "No, this is not what we want in terms of political leadership. We will form our own, build our own, and protect our own. We will do it this way." This is why we won't go out and take a step out on businesses, and we will support our own businesses. We won't even take our money out of white banks and put it in black banks and make the black banks do what they're supposed to do. We won't go to a politician who we put in office and say, "Wait a minute, don't you know how you got in this office? Don't you know we voted you in here? What do you mean you're beholden to somebody else? How many of their doggone votes you got?" Well, we have to keep harmony. Harmony, hell. I'm your harmony. I'm your harmony. We don't even require people to do what we pay them to do, elect them to do, want them to do, require them to do, because we are fearful of standing up. Fear is number one. Number two, I'm talking about the chains on our minds now. I'm talking about the inner freedom. I'm talking about the freedom that is keeping the African from getting free. Secondly, dependency. We don't know how to do for ourselves. We don't know how to do that. And I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if you haven't done anything for yourself in 4 centuries, you forget. I mean, you really don't know. We don't know how to organize things. We don't know how to make things run correctly for us. We don't know how to make things serve our own self-interest. We end up sabotaging our own effectiveness because we always want to depend on someone else to take care of it. Now look, there is no reason in the world for us to believe that European Americans will ever educate our children correctly. Ain't no reason in the world. I mean, why would you believe that? What would give you the idea that you could ever convince these people to educate your children right? I don't care how much you protest. how much you demand, they will never do it. What they will end up doing is getting some white folks to teach them Afrocentric orientations. Because anybody in their right minds would know that anyone who has systematically blocked you from knowing for 3 centuries will not change overnight, over a year, over a decade, over a score of years, or even over a century. The only way we'll ever be able to really educate our children is to do it ourselves. That's the only way. That's the only way. Now, it can work different. Now, that doesn't mean all of us need to pull out of the public schools. The public schools belong to us too. And there are skills and resources there we can use. But for the real learning, for the learning that will empower them, we have got to depend on us to do that. Everybody else does it. The Japanese do it. You're right here in Brooklyn, you know the Jews do it. Everybody does that. They go to public school, get with the public schools guy, then come home and get the real thing from themselves. Every church and every community in America ought to have an afternoon and a weekend school to provide additional education. Every mosque that has African people in it, I don't care what language they speak in, Arabic, Hebrew, Nubian Hebrew, Arabic, upside down, Ethiopian, whatever. It does not matter. Every one of them, between Salat, they ought to be teaching our children who they are and what they need to be doing for themselves. They don't need to be walking around with all these strange foreign costumes and everything, trying to pretend they're somebody they're not. What they need to do is to understand who they are. Who they are, what is their particular responsibility as Muslims or as Hebrews or as Christians or as metaphysical spiritualists or transcendental whatever, it doesn't matter. They need to know who they are. And every one of us should use what resources we have to make that happen. That's the only way we can begin to get free. But we keep thinking that white folks will do it for us. Here we are dying at incredible rates. Even the white folks are saying health care is out of control. We don't know what to do about it. That's right. The president and his wife trying to save white folks. They ain't interested in you. They're saying we don't know what to do about white folks' health care. And how many black folks are trying to organize to get hospitals in our communities? That's right. How many? None. Not since Elijah Muhammad died, who said we need a hospital for our people. Have I heard one black leader stand up and say that? Not one. He's the only one I heard say on a national level, we need a hospital. Have you been sick lately? With or without insurance or an HMO? These people treat you like a piece of beef. They will treat you like a dog, and only metaphysical spiritual powers can keep you alive because their medicine sure won't do it. We don't understand that when it comes to preserving your life, why are we so willing to turn ourselves over to people who always want to take our lives? That's right. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why do you think that's going to work? That's right. Why do you think that white policemen will provide better security in your neighborhood than will black policemen? And why do the black policemen think they owe better security to the white people than they owe to their own people? Why do they think that their worst enemies are somebody who look like them? And what is the nature of the crazy mind that makes us believe that because they are policemen, they are our worst enemies? That's because of the dependency mind. The cops often believe they belong to the white folks, and we often believe they belong to the white folks. And because of that misconstrued illusion, we end up becoming enemies to each other. And if they are not ours, then we ought to get our own. We need to have our own security to defend and protect our own communities. But you understand the problem. The problem is that we are dependent. Now, we're talking about starting a little mom and pop store, a barbecue stand, a barbershop, a hairdresser. We don't talk about putting up a security system to protect Bed-Stuy, to protect Harlem. We don't talk about creating a health care system for our communities. The NAACP doesn't talk about that. The Urban League doesn't talk about that. Our organizations don't talk. We don't even think in those terms. We assume that the most essential things we have, somebody will take care of for us. That is a bizarre, insane, brazen dependency that leaves us in the same state we were in 100 years ago. Now, don't get depressed now. We're going to talk about some solutions. But I want you to understand the problem. I want you to understand what the real problem is and how we are driven by these problems that are completely depriving us of our energy to do anything. Number 3, chains. These are problems. These are things that are restricting our growth. Number 3, this is the worst one. Disunity. Now, I don't even need to talk about that. You know that. You know, I don't know if you believe this or not, and we have such little confidence in ourselves. We really don't know. Do you know that we can solve any problem we have in our communities? Juvenile problems, education of our children, healthcare problems, legal problems, political problems, even economic problems. If we came together, that's right, and we have some of the best trained experts in the world in every field imaginable. Many of them are kind of crazy, but that's to be expected. But if we could even get the crazy ones to come work as a unit, we could do miraculous things. Some of the best educators in the world are our people. The best engineers in the world, our people. Best physicians, our people. Some of the most creative and genius legal minds in the world, our people, African Americans. We have creative artists, creative musicians. We have creative actors. Everything we need, we got. We don't need any new supply. The supply is adequate. What we need to do is to coalesce, pull together what the supply is. But the most malignant, sick, destructive force in our communities is this force of disunity. That's right. We can't get together. Yeah, that's right. And I don't understand it. That's right. I mean, everybody, there's probably no group that's more diverse, more different, more various schools of thought than the Jews. I mean, you all know them better than I do up here. Y'all live right here with them. Right. I mean, a Jew on one block don't look nothing like a Jew on another block. Some of them got little curls by the ears, others got yarmulkes on, others got funny hats, some of them don't take baths, some of them do, some of them change their name. They look all kinds of ways. Some of them are atheists, some of them are so spiritual they don't even know where the earth is. I mean, they have all kinds of things. But if somebody says something about Jews, they all there. They're all there as a single force. Reform, Orthodox, Hasidic, atheistic, secular, sacred, holy, unholy, devils, gods, all of them. They're together. Right. Because they understand that whatever else we may be, ultimately our faith depends upon our understanding that we are first and foremost in this world situation, Jews. You must understand that no matter what else goes on, no matter what else you may be in this world, first and foremost, you are an African black person. That's number one. That's number one. That's number one. That's number one. But look, we so easily buy into every kind of divisiveness imaginable. If we don't buy into a divisiveness they have given us, we create a new way to be divided. And, you know, I don't have any problem with some of us being Amy's, some being Amy Zion, some of us being United Methodist, some of us being Church of God in Christ, some of us Church of God in Christ in the afternoon, some of us Church of God in Christ in the morning, Church of God in Christ in the sky, Church of God in Christ on the ground. I mean, it doesn't matter that. As long as you understood that in the process of doing all of that has got to eventually take us to the same spot. We've got to understand that it is not about Muslim versus Christian versus Nubian versus Hebrew. Every one of us, none of us, the Arabs don't look at us and say, my brother, alhamdulillah, assalamu alaikum, come my brother. They say, there comes a nigger. Even though many of them look like us, they make a point to see themselves as distinct from us. They don't embrace us. Even if we speak, they think they ought to teach us Islam. They think they're the only ones who have it. They think Islam is their religion. They don't know we think it's ours too. They think it's theirs. The Pope don't love you. I don't care how many Hail Mary full of graces you say, how many candles you burn. He don't give a damn about you. He didn't do it in World War II. He didn't do it during slavery. He didn't do it before. He does not care today. But we think that's number one. All of these things. Don't nobody care whether you went to NYU, Princeton, Yale, or Hampton. Who cares? What are you equipped to do? Who cares whether you are Alpha or Kappa, or AKA or Delta, or Mason? Who cares whether you're Prince Hall or find me the Night of the Pythians behind the back room with the solid black stone moving upright to the square with a perpendicular compass? Don't nobody care. If that compass and square and stones and books and all them Solomon's temple and all the lines of the tiger's grip and the lion's paw, if all that will pull you out of this situation, bring it on. Pull us out. But you see, we don't use these things as instruments to our liberation. We use them as instruments for our own and continued destruction. We are constantly finding ways. Look, we should be able to sit down with any of our people, anywhere, and find some point of agreement. I don't agree with everybody who's African American, by no means. But this thing does not require us to be uniform. It requires us to be united. We should be able to sit down with even our most crazy Negroes and find some point of agreement. And I'm willing to do it. And I've tried to do it. We should be able to sit down with our most fanatical warriors. I mean, with spears, loincloths, dynamite in their back pockets, everything, ready to blow up anything white. We ought to be able to sit down with them. In fact, we ought to sit down with them. But listen, we should be able to sit down and find some point of common agreement. I mean, like, who cares that white folks think that Jesse Jackson, Farrakhan, and all these other people constitute different camps? That's their definition. The camp is the freedom of African people. They may not realize it themselves, but that is the camp. That's the only camp that they are parts of. But you see, the major tool, and you've heard this a million times, the major tool is to keep us alienated from each other, divided from each other, and fighting among each other. Yeah, look, the problem of sexism is sickening in this society. It's sickening. It is one of the most disgusting realities next to racism in this society. But, sisters, you don't belong with Betty Friedan and them other crazy white women. That's not your movement. You don't join in an attack on black men. We didn't create the racist system. We ain't got enough power to create a system for ourselves. We didn't create that. If we practice it, it's only because we are partially crazy. So sit down with us and help us to get sane. Understand what it means when this society rewards black women to attack black men. Gives them awards of outstanding accomplishment because they can put down black men worse than anybody else. Yeah, we got problems. We got serious problems. And if we don't get them together, we gonna all be dead. But whether we get them together or not, you can't do nothing without us, sister. We all belong to each other. We belong to each other. We can't go anywhere without you, and you can't go anywhere without us. It does not matter. Look, doesn't matter how many white women want me. They can't ever get me free. No way. No way. And my aspiration is from my neck up, not from my belt down. So she can bring whatever gifts of passion she might have. But the passion, ain't got much is right, sister, but the passion won't get me where I need to go. The only way I can get free is holding hands with the one who shares the cultural, historical, and spiritual connection that ties us to the origin of who we are. That's the only way we can do it. The only way. The only way. The only way. Look, look, look. I don't want no white woman raising my child. Look, look, look. I don't care what toys she buys it, what plays she takes him to, what zoo she goes to, what vacation she takes him on. I don't care what she gives. The only person I want to raise my children is a black woman from Africa. That's who I want. That's who I want. Listen, listen. No doubt about it. Listen, 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 listen. There is no agenda bigger than the agenda for the salvation of our people. That's the only thing that we have to worry about. And if we see that foremost, we can deal with all these divisions. We enjoy so much tearing each other down. Well, brother, what group you with? I'm with God's group for freedom for Africans. Which God? Well, ain't but one. The fact that we call him different names, that's our confusion, not his or hers. I mean, that's our problem, not the problem of God. So the problem is that we need to understand that as long as we are caught up in these things that keep us at war with each other, we cannot pull together what's necessary to free ourselves. We tear each other's down, always looking for a flaw, trying to find something bad, dirty, distracting, so we can tear them down. And it's because of our own fear. We see a man standing up, doing what men's supposed to do. We want to find something wrong with it. We want to tear something down. We want to disunify, break it up, find something to destroy his credibility. I don't care how many flaws he has. Can you depend on him to stand up as a man when the battle comes? Can you depend on him to look out and be committed to the salvation of his people? Is his life committed to that? That's the criteria. We all got flaws. Who came off the plantation without a flaw? You don't get off the plantation without a flaw. Every woman, every man, every child, every African who went through slavery literally or symbolically came off with a flaw, or several flaws, or 20 or 30 flaws. But the flaw is not the question. It's one's commitment to the liberation of our people that must be the criteria ultimately. That's the criteria. So, in order to free these minds, we've got to overcome fear, dependency, and disunity. How do we do it? Number one, we have got to engage in an intensive process of relearning, resocialization, and rebuilding our minds. Got to do it. That means that every day we've got to read more information so we can know something more about the depths of who we are. Do you understand the consequences of being in a culture where the entire culture, day in, day out, constantly while you are sleeping, while you're awake, is telling your story and building your internal knowledge base? Do you know the power of that? Do you know what it's like to have streets and areas of town and cities named in accordance with your history and speaking to the continuity of your history? Do you know what it's like to turn on TV and every time you turn it on, you're seeing stories of your greatness, your possibilities, your capability, your power, your effectiveness, your ability to lead the world, your ability to own the world, those stories constantly being told? Do you know what it's like every time you walk into a school, they're telling your story over and over and over and over and over again? Every holiday is telling your story over and over over and over and over again. Every time you get together, you're celebrating your story. Every monument tells your story. Every symbol tells your story. Every myth tells your story. Do you know the power in that? Do you know what a handicap we are under? To have nothing around to tell our story except one Wednesday night a week at the Slave Theater. Maybe some of us get this in small quantities, or pick up Chancellor Williams' book that we're still trying to get through for the first time, or picking up Chekanta Diop, or talking about what you heard, or heard John Henry Clark someplace, or heard Little Jeffries someplace once in a while. Don't you know you need to have that propaganda going through your mind day in, day out, so you can learn to be black? Listen, listen, listen. 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 You need to, before, you don't need to even turn, maybe you need to turn on the news once in a while to find out if the white folks are on the way to get you or not. And they'll tell you when they're coming. They tell you that the cigarettes they're giving you are poisoning you. They tell you that the liquor will kill you. They tell you the air is polluted. They tell you they aren't educating you. They tell you they have no more money left. They tell you they're about to drop your job. They tell you. So you need to know when they're coming to get you. But every other thing you need to listen to is you. That's right. Pop in Leonard Jeffries in the tape. Pop in Asa Hilliard. Pop in Francis Wilson. Pop in Francis Rogers Rowe. Pop in one of my tapes. Hear something that sounds like you. We don't have to be 100% accurate. Just let us be looking in the right direction. And let you say, that sounds good. That sounds like me. I don't know whether it's true or not, but it sure sounds right. That's all you need. White folks ain't always accurate, but they always white. And so look, we may not always be accurate, but we always black. And that's what counts. So we need to begin to build to do that. We need to understand the importance of relearning, re-educating ourselves. You see, it's important. I mean, it's not just ritual to say that we were the designers of human civilization in its infancy. It's not just symbolic to say that we were the builders of the Sphinx and the pyramids. We understood the metaphysical message that created that symbolic replica that has been standing for thousands of years, watching Ra rise on the horizon, day in and day out, year in and year out, for thousands of years, replicating the cycle of understanding that was laid out in those early understandings of the metaphysical reality of this world. It is not just accidental that we understand that the earliest concept of medicine and healing, the use of pharmacology, the use of the mind, the use of surgery, the use of healing was first done by black, kinky-haired, big-nosed, thick-lipped, blue-black people who look like you. It's not accidental. Listen, it is not accidental that you understand that there was no mathematics understood in this world. There were not even any mathematical symbols until Africans gave the world mathematical symbols by which they could begin to build a concept of going in outer space. You need to know that. Your children need to know that. There was not even a concept of geography. The concept of geography was so distorted and so misunderstood that the Europeans thought they'd go off to the edge of the world and fall off the side until Africans said, don't be no fool. The world is round, my friend. It's round, it's like a ball, it's like the sun, it's like the stars, it's like everything. It rolls and rolls and rolls. You can't fall off the edge because you're tied to this earth. You need to know that. Our children need to know that. You need to know that despite everything they did, we still came up with a W.E.B. Du Bois. You need to know that in spite of everything they did, we still created a genius called George Washington Carver. You need to know that in spite of everything they did, we came up with a Charles Drew, a Benjamin Banneker. You need to know that. Your children need to know that in spite of everything to kill our spirit and give us a white God, Harriet Tubman reached behind the white faith and pulled out the divine direction coming from a spiritual inspiration that spoke to her very soul. You need to know that. You need to know that despite the fact that they didn't want us to have any contact or understanding with the religions that came out of Africa and the power that Islam had interacted with African cultures and building Mali, Songhai, Timbuktu, and the University of Jané and the Ghanaian Empire. If they don't want us to know that, but you need to know what Elijah Muhammad came up and found out in spite of all of that. You need to know that. You need to know that Marcus Garvey came up out of the West Indies and understood that even though they say we are not brothers, we are brothers, and Africa ties us together to be one united people. You need to know that. 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 Relearning. You need to understand what is the nature of the genius of this black mind. How is it that we could go through an educational system that never told us anything about ourselves? I mean, how could we go up and learn Sigmund Freud and Abraham Maslow and Skinner and John Watson, schedules of reinforcement and instinctual levels of libidinal cathexis based upon the unconscious Oedipus complex and castration anxiety and penis envy, and understood all they told us about the hierarchy of needs from the Maslowian existential and humanistic point of view, and how the schedules of reinforcement of a Watsonian notion of a Skinnerian reinforcement, how they could teach us all that, and we still come out here saying that the freedom of the black man is in knowing his African self and being able to restore the spiritual understanding that ties us to the African roots of civilization itself. How could they teach us that and we end up saying this? How could they teach Frances Wilson all that good old European genetics and she look through the era and say, "You're talking about yourself, aren't you?" So that's what you're trying to tell us. You've got a genetic mutation. You're suffering from a problem. Now I get it. I got it now. How could we create a Cheikh Anta Diop, who they tried to colonize? In Senegal, made him parlez-vous français until he was Sprechen almost. That somehow feeling that you couldn't get educated until you went to France and went to the Sorbonne. Went to the Sorbonne, studied their anthropology, studied their linguistics, looked all the way through the European system and said, aha, I see. That's what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that all languages are rooted in the African language. So your paleontologists are trying to say then that there was no civilization until Africans began to establish civilization. Aha! So your physicists have understood carbon dating now, and they can go and date these ancient African mummies, and they understand that these mummies were African men who ruled Africa and African women who ruled Africa long before Europeans ever came about. That's what you want to tell us? I got it. I got it. That's genius. That's genius. Any of our children who master education in this society deserve a special applaud. They are special. Do you know what it takes? I mean, I'd be willing to bet you we could not get one gifted white child if we were raising them in a totally African culture, teaching them a total African way, giving them respect for nothing but Africa. I bet we couldn't get one gifted African child. Because they got a lot of idiots, and they got everything going for them. But look at the geniuses we produce. Look at you. Look at your children. Look at people you know. Look at the fact, yeah, we in prisons, we have all those things, but look at how we've been able to ride all those destructive things in spite of everything they've done. We all over the world doing all kinds of things that we never were supposed to do. That's a special genius that we need to understand and appreciate where that came from. We need to understand the nature of a mind that brings together the spiritual and the rational, and understanding that spirituality and rationality are not contradictory, they constitute the same thing. We need to restore the understanding that law, be it common law or civil law, is rooted in the ethical law of Ma'at, which is the natural law of the Creator that Africans first conceptualized and understood, that when you break the law, you're disrupting the order and the harmony of the very universe that the Creator has laid down with mathematical precision. That is the message that needs to be understood, but we need to relearn, because only in relearning, we need to understand that male and female are not contradictory principles. They are complementary principles. They must operate together. There is not competition, there is union, there's a uniting, there's a fusion, out of which comes reproductivity, creativity, new mental life as well as physical life. We need to understand that the war of division that this society has created is due to their own dualistic creation that created a concept of rivalry when things were supposed to be together. We need to understand, this is the relearning we're talking about, the re-education that begins to teach us there is no such thing as individualism. No such thing as individuality. There is only the community. Only the community. Every life that exists was brought into existence by a community. Nobody created themselves except Peter. No one brought themselves into existence. A community brought us into existence. The blood that rolls through our vein is community blood. The language that we speak is community language. The practices that we practice is community practice. There is nothing that we have of value that is simply our own. The Western world has created this concept of individuality that has us at war with every other person, every other being, having us feeling like we are islands separated, not understanding that we are tied to eternity by our connection with each other. We've always been here, always will be here, and cannot be destroyed because we constitute a continuous, consistent, monolithic whole tied together to the very origin of life on this planet. That's the relearning that we need to do. Second, I got to finish up, time's getting late. Second, this is what we need to do. This is how we liberate this mind. We need to celebrate ourselves. I meant like stop apologizing to white folks for loving yourself. Stop apologizing. Stop doing it. Look, it's their problem that they believe that loving black means you hate white. Now, some of us hate white, and that's realistic. But that ain't got nothing to do with loving black. Those are mutually exclusive realities. I don't have to explain to them. I don't have to apologize to anybody on this planet. None of my people ever enslaved them. None of my people ever systematically went around lynching them. None of my people put bombs in their churches and blew up their babies going to church. None of my people ever raped them wholesale and created a mongoloid generation of people who didn't want nothing but a bunch of bastards out of the consequences of rape. We have not done any of that to them. We don't have to apologize to anybody. Don't buy into that reverse racism stuff. Ain't no such thing. There's no such thing. Listen. Celebrate you. Be glad to be you. Be you at the best you can be. Don't be no second-rate you. Don't be no mom and pop you. Be skyscraper you. Be trade center you. Be Main Street, Park Avenue you. Be Guggenheim Museum you. Yeah, you see, we have problems celebrating ourselves because we don't know how important we are yet. We don't know the power of what we are, so we don't know how to celebrate. So we think Black History Month is enough. We think a kente cloth shawl is enough. We think to have 2 black books on the shelf is enough. We need it everywhere. We should never take another of our child and put him on any white man's knee and say, Santa Claus, bring me a damn thing. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Listen, it is insanity. Does anybody in here still do that in 1993? Do you take your babies and put them on this fat white man's knee and have them begging this white man to bring them stuff? I hope you are not doing that. In fact, what you ought to do is almost time. You need to organize to make sure that they don't have no white Santa Clauses, no place where you playing the shop in large numbers. Now, if you go to other communities, they got a right to have whatever Santa Claus they want. Hanukkah Harry, Hanukkah whatever, Juanito Santa or whatever. It don't matter. But in your communities, don't let them send no white man down there. If your child wants a white Santa Claus, tell him to wait for one to come. And let the white Santa Claus bring it. Let them know that if anybody is going to come through the chimney, come through the door, come through the window, come up through the pipes, it's going to be a big black man or big black woman bringing them what they need. Celebrate yourself. Kwanzaa should be universal. by now. Everybody African ought to be celebrating that. Our own values, our own history. That's the self-celebration. All of our communities ought to look like this room. We should have reminders of our greatest and our strongest in our homes, in our offices, wherever we are. We need to have symbols and replicas representing the best of what we are, because that's the access to freeing our minds. We trying to get free. You get free when you love you. You get free when you love you, when you're committed to you, when you understand that either I'm free or there is no freedom. When you make your mind up that that's what I'm about, that's the path to freedom. Third, we need to identify with the best of our people. We need to identify with our best. So we need to, well, first of all, as I said earlier, you got to know them. But there is not an actor in America who should have not mastered an understanding of the biography of Paul Robeson. All of them. Anybody who dares to be in entertainment should have as introduction to entertainment. They should have the mastery of that document. There's not an athlete anywhere who should not have mastered an understanding of Muhammad Ali. He's the only one who used the sports, not let the sports use him. He made a statement for our people all over the world. Every athlete, Michael Jordan, whatever the rest of them, Dion, whoever they are, all of them, they all need to know that you don't let the ball play you. You play the ball. They need to identify with our strongest and our best. Every rich woman, including you, Oprah, you need to go read Madam C.J. Walker. And even though the sister made the straightening comb, may God forgive her, but she knew what y'all wanted, that's why. She was satisfying your deepest desires. At least she made the money off it rather than Revlon, so let's congratulate. But what she did with her money is that she was constantly building an African United States of America connection. She was bringing in the art. She was going back and forth to Africa. I'm talking about 60 years ago, 70 years ago, when it wasn't popular, when folks didn't want to be associated with Africa. Even though she had people straightening their hair and greasing it down, the woman knew where home was. She built a theater in Indianapolis that is filled with replicas of African Nile Valley culture, all painted black. This was 70 years ago. And y'all just discovered the Nile Valley was black yesterday. You thought it was Elizabeth Taylor and Ramesses and the rest of them. You a Brunner. But all over her place, she has these images out of ancient Kemet who look like us. We need to understand if you're going to be a millionaire, a millionairess, or whatever, this is the way to use your money to build and spread that wealth. And she spread wealth. She had people, African Americans, making money all over the country, using her product and spreading it. And that's the message that they need to learn. We need to identify with our strongest people, our best people, because that gives us the energy. And listen, you don't have to agree with them. Now, you see, I don't agree with Thurgood Marshall. I don't agree with him. He believed to the day he died that the only functional institution was an integrated one. But you know what I identify with him? The fact that he never gave up fighting for what he believed in for our people. He never forgot who he was. He never forgot what his responsibility was. Now, even though his ideology is not one I agree with, I could have sat down with him any day and said, I'm your man. We on the same team. Now, when you get your job done, I'm going to go and try to do another job because I want to build some independent institutions. If you don't want to come to them, that's fine. But what you're doing is based on a belief and commitment. And anybody who doesn't know what a valuable resource he was, look at him in contrast to that Negro that's up there on the bench now. That shows you the difference right there. So we want to identify with that. Adam Clayton Powell, strange brother. He had a good time. The brother partied hard. He had, some things weren't too cool. But he never forgot who sent him there. He knew who his constituency was. And he understood that as long as he satisfied that constituency, to hell with what white folks thought. Every politician, listen, every politician, Jesse, Dinkins, and every one of the rest of them need to go read the story of Adam Clayton Powell. We need to identify with our strongest and our best, because that's the power. If you want to be a scholar, you need to read W.B. Du Bois. You need to read the brother who mastered the European systems, went through every one of them step by step, dismissed them all as inadequate, and ended up in Africa. Now, that is a gradation, that is an evolution of thinking you need to know if you call yourself a student. We need to identify with these models, these symbols of power, and strengthen our communities, because that's the source of liberating and freeing ourselves. We need to know about the commitment of a Marcus Garvey and his organizational skills. He didn't have no shoddy thing. They tell me that his parades always started on time, and they were all dressed sharply. They all marched down the street boldly. He wasn't about doing no secondhand thing. He didn't want to go back to Africa on Delta. He wanted to go back on the Black Star Line. Now, because he didn't have the right people to choose the right materials, he got duped. Because white folks will dupe you if you don't know. But if we'd had the people who knew better, he would have gotten first-rate equipment. That's what we need to identify with. We need to identify. Look, you ain't got to like Elijah Muhammad, but you ought to identify with him, because he had the most powerful community development we have known in the last century in this country. The most powerful one, bar none. What other organization of black people had its own bank, its own nationwide newspaper? What other group of black people had schools coast to coast? I mean, not one school, not two schools, coast to coast. The University of Islam was all over America. What other group you could go into any city and find you a bean pie, a fish sandwich, and you know it was good? All over. Who else was talking about thousands of acres of farmland for everybody? Who was importing food for our communities? Now, I don't care if you don't like how many wives he had. I don't care if you got mad because he got mad with Malcolm. That's a whole nother story. But what you need to understand is that what he did for our communities is worthy of our identification. We've got to see it. We've got to see it. We've got to see it. And that's the point. That's the point. Last but not least, the way to get free is to do what everybody cannot take an excuse for not doing. You want to know what's to be done? You have got to do it. Service, commitment. Everybody has got to commit themselves to doing something. Something. Regularly and consistently. Y'all got to stop being jived. I get so sick of us. Yeah, brother, I'm going to be there. And what time you want me there? I'll be right there. You see this crazy former slave? 2 weeks later, oh man, I sure forgot. But if the white man tell him to be there, he'll be there, scratching. Yeah, boss, here I am. Look, these things don't work unless you make them work. You know, why hasn't this place been bought and renovated yet? I mean, like, you know, why is it still, listen, this belongs to us here. It should represent us. We ought to have indirect lighting coming up out the floor. We should have platforms that rise and fall, seats that are so soft you have to fight to stay awake in here. You ought to have all kinds of artwork imported from the best black artists. Outside, you ought to be able to see this place for miles a while around. Way up in the top of the sky, you should see a red, black, and green flag. UAM is over there in Brooklyn. You ought to be able to see it. People all over the Northeast I want to ride by here and say, look at that, look at that. See, look at that. Look what they've done. Why shouldn't we have the best? There is no virtue in being second class. There is no virtue in poverty. I want the best. My people built the best buildings. They did the best medicine. They understood the best theology. They had the best concept of God. They had the best ethics. We should have those things again. But everybody has got to do something. And you got to do it regularly. I got to depend on you to do it. We've got to deal with each other with the same respect that we run other people's systems. We've got to stop expecting somebody to do something for us. We take people like these one or two brothers and sisters at UAM and kill them. Run them to death. Run them to death. I mean, what I'm doing is my work. I don't mind being here at all. But folks almost kill me. John Henry Clark, every place I go, that brother is blind and almost 90 years old, and he's all over the world. And people are pulling on it, pulling on it, pulling on it. Nobody says, what can we do for you, brother? John G. Jackson died in Chicago just a few weeks ago. Died in poverty and bitterness. Chancellor Williams died this year, bitter, in poverty. Our best scholars, our best thinkers gave their whole lives to doing research to get us free, thinking about nothing but us, gave us the best jobs, the best money, used their genius to do nothing but us, and we let them die in poverty. The ancestors will pay us for this. We continue to destroy each other by sick, destructive, crazy mess. Throw away more money on a bottle of beer than you will on trying to bring understanding to your people. We should be ashamed of ourselves. We need to understand service. Look, John Henry Clark should never have to go anywhere. Thank you. We need him. But you know what we need? We need to get a cable television hookup. That's right. Take it to his studio that we build for him. That's right. Put him down and say, when you feel like talking, come in and talk. And we'll take your picture, and we'll beam it all over the planet. We don't need to have this man flying all over the world at his age, blind. That's right. We are killing him. We need to keep him here as long as we possibly can. In fact, when he gets ready to sit down, and you know, he's still trying to write books with almost no help. He's doing it, you're right. But that's in spite of us, not because of us. Has anyone offered him a computer? Is anyone here offered to transcribe some of his lectures so that he can begin to put his ideas together in a more cogent pattern? Some of you are legal secretaries. No. You know how to do it. How many of you have gone over to where he lives and say, can I make your home more comfortable for you? Is there something I can do? Nobody. Yeah, okay, I know there are one or two. But I'm saying all of us must understand that's the commitment. That's right. That's the commitment we must give. We must give back to those who give to us. You know, it amazes me. You know, people think that they are doing Asa Hilliard and Wade Nobles and Francis Welsing and me and they think that Ivan Vance think they're doing us a favor when they drag us all over the country in godforsaken little places in the way up in upstate New York and Minnesota, one or two black folks here. And they think they're doing us a favor by letting us make us eat ham hocks and don't even try to get no decent food, old hard beds, drafty rooms. And they think they're doing, yeah, brother, you ought to be glad to come in. Look, not a one of us, if we did not believe in you, could not use our genius that we're committing to you to get whatever we wanted. All of our, look, I can talk as good as Les Brown. The only difference is I believe in you. Les Brown believes in him and white folks. He doesn't, listen, I mean, that's not a put down. That means he uses his gift to not direct towards motivating and driving us. He wants to motivate and drive all people. I don't want to do that. Ivan Van Sertima, but you think that the research that he's done would not get rewards if he was doing it for white folks? He could be on the top of the white academic world. But he's not there because he's given his gift of scholarship to us. Don't you understand that people who have given their lives to us has been done so out of commitment and service? What do you think is happening to my family while I'm here? I've already lost my wife because she couldn't stand my being gone all the time. But I got 3 children who see me on the way to the airport. I don't enjoy that. They are growing up constantly, but I'm being the daddy to all America while I'm losing access to watching them grow. That's a sacrifice. That's a hell of a sacrifice. 3 fine children who I could selfishly look down, get my salary from Florida State University, and live happily ever after. Yes, I ask you to pay me when I come. You doggone right. How the hell am I going to feed my babies? When I'm here, I'm not working for white folks. When I'm running around the world, I'm not working for white folks. How the hell am I going to eat, fool? Who's going to put shoes on my baby's feet? Listen. Yeah, well, you know, I understand. Every time Brother Akbar comes, he wants some money. Yes. When you turn on your lights, the power company wants money. When you send your child. But it ain't because I'm draining you, fool. It's because I'm trying to save myself to save you. If I eat and you feed me, then I don't have to answer to white folks. And I'm so happy to say that even though some people complain, the black community in this country has freed me from white folks. You take care of me. You do. You do. Listen, for the last 3 years, black America takes care of me. I'm still on the faculty at Florida State, but I don't ever have to show up. And when I show up on my terms. I call up and say, I may come up today. I'm going to teach a black psychology class. I don't want nothing in there but black students. I come up on my terms. They say, when do you want to teach, Dr. Akbar? I say, I think I like Monday nights. I want to do the class 1 day a week. That's all right, we'll make that work. Because they know I'm free. They know I'm supported by my community. And I'm suggesting to you that if we all make a commitment of service, we can all free each other. We can all free each other. So listen, re-education, celebration, commitment and service, these are the things that will help us to begin to free ourselves. Because the freedom, the power to be free is already in the very roots and the foundation of our nature. Our personalities were being free. You see, what our people tried to tell us for thousands of years is that we are, in fact, in the image of God. Our mind is the repository of the divine energy of the very universe itself. You cannot capture and captivate the creative force of the very universe. It is there in us. God is not external to our reality. God lives within us. That's why white people put their faces on it and claimed it to be theirs. That's why they claim God as being a foreign entity, because they did not want you to understand that God is working through us right now, and the process of our liberation and freedom has already been decided by the very structure of the universe itself, and there's no force on this earth can deter what God has put into place. And if you will understand that God is not a white man, he is not a white Jesus, he is not a white Allah, he is not an Arabic speaking foreigner who comes from another land, that God is the living creative spirit that works and operates through you right now. If you will understand that, there will be no more slavery and we will be free tonight. Peace be unto you.
Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar. Dr. Akbar.